Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 1 of NPC Contact, the podcast dedicated to anything and everything old school RuneScape related. I'm your host, Will, and as usual, I'm joined by Dane.
Greetings.
And Grant.
You alright, mate?
And this week we have quite an interesting topic that I want to talk to you guys about. Obviously, as usual, we're going to start off with any of the blogs that we want to talk about. So we've picked 2 this week. The first being Mahogany Homes and the second being Fishing Boss. So we're going to kick things off by having a look at the Mahogany Homes update. Do you guys have any initial thoughts on this before we start cracking on, or what do you think in general?
I think not a big update, not a huge one, but fills a bit of a niche, something a bit different, so why not?
Mm-hmm. Grant?
Yeah, I quite like it. I think it's cool, honestly. I did like a little bit of, like, literally when it came out, I went and tried it, and it was, it's fine, as long as it's slower than regular construction, yeah.
I haven't touched it yet, I'm going to be honest. Obviously, I've read the blog and everything, but I haven't given it a go. How does it play, like, in terms of its like, actual gameplay?
Consider it kind of like Slayer, right? You get tasked.
Yeah, that's what I thought when I first saw it.
And then, yeah, you kind of get told, there's like, I don't know, I can't speak from experience because I've only done one of them, but I'm pretty sure there's like a set amount of people. Like, go talk to Norman south of Falador, and then you just do that.
I think there's like 9 different houses or something. Anyway, let's get into the mechanics of it before we start our discussion. So, like Grant said, it's sort of like Slayer, but for construction, you get assigned a job to go and fix various items in an NPC's house. There are 4 different tiers. So you've got beginner, which requires 1 construction, novice, which requires 20 construction, adept, which is 50, and expert, which is 70. So it's quite interesting to see the different ranges of levels in there. And obviously you get different XP rates for each different tier. I've taken these from the old school wiki, so you know, if they're incorrect, then go shout at them, not me. So I've got beginner listed as 35k an hour, novice at 50k an hour, adept at 110k an hour, and expert for anywhere from 175 to 200k. So I just really wanted to get your thoughts on the XP rates first of all, before we look at any of the rewards and stuff like that as a training method. You said earlier that you feel like it fills some sort of niche, Dane. Does the XP change that, or?
I've not actually tried it myself yet personally. I've watched a little bit of it. I just feel like when you think of the skill construction itself, it's very, very one-dimensional in terms of how you train it. I just feel like it's, as you say, because it's like Slayer. I just feel like it just adds a little bit of variety to it, so it'll make it a little bit more fun, something else to do. And the fact that you can do it as an effective way to train the skill itself, I'm all for it.
My understanding is that the traditional way of training construction is obviously just throw a bunch of money at the skill and you get 99. My understanding is that this is designed to reduce the amount that you spend on construction while giving you somewhat like decent XP. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's basically a poor man's construction training method, really.
Well,
like, my thoughts on it are just kind of like, you do this when you need to train construction, but you can't afford it. But also, just like looking at it, I feel like, you know, it's going to entice Reddit very much. Use the Slayer word. Like, oh shit, like that. Big fan.
It comes back to that. I mean, we'll touch on this a bit later on, but the whole artisan skill.
Yeah.
You know, where you get, you get an assignment to do X amount of skilling on X skill. And I think that it's an interesting way of taking training, your gathering and stuff like that.
I don't like it.
So XP wise, it caps out at 200k an hour at 70, which is obviously not a lot when you think about construction typically.
That'll be sway to get 200k.
So I'm happy with that in terms of that being the cap. I wouldn't particularly, because the thing about construction is it's such a good gold sink, and I know that someone out there will immediately think of the actual golden sink that you can make, probably you, Grant. But it's very good that there is a way of getting money out of the game, and I think that trying to reduce that, even if it is to the benefit of like individual players, I'm not sure if that's like good for the game overall.
Yeah, I'm kind of in 2 minds about it. I do get what you're saying, but I mean, 200k an hour, that's sway, right? I'm pretty sure the average player who's just kind of doing it is going to probably cap at about 170, 175.
Yeah.
Compared to like what 800. I mean, I think when I was doing construction, I capped at almost 850k an hour.
Yeah, I mean, you can get over a mil XP an hour doing
like it's a lot. So I mean, I don't really mind it, but I get the money sink thing. But I mean,
okay, so I don't think
it will change too much.
We're mostly in agreement then. It's good that there is a way to like train the skill at a lower XP rate for less cost. Let's look at the rewards. So there are 5 rewards. So I have the supply crate, which is just something you open and it contains construction supplies. Amy's saw, which is a wieldable saw. The plank sack, so you can store an extra 28 planks in your invent. The Hesidious blueprints, which obviously changes the scheme of your house, and we have the carpenter outfit, which is just a typical skilling outfit. What do we think of the rewards, fellas?
I actually really like the rewards. I know originally you're gonna be like, okay, he's max, he's gonna sit and he's gonna devaluing this, but no, I've always been a big fan of skilling outfits. Maybe it's because I came from RS3, so I kind of have that ingrained in me. But I like it. And the wieldable saw just makes sense.
Like, I mean, we have a wieldable fishing rod now as well.
Yeah,
so very efficient.
I like it. What was it? The crate or whatever, right?
And supply crate.
Supply. What does that do, sorry again?
It just gives you construction supplies when you open it. It's sort of like
that's
the fishing thing from the fishing bots.
Yeah, no problem at all. That is just little things. They're nothing crazy. I think they're cool.
Yeah, again, nothing too over the top, but just little things that will make the skill slightly more enjoyable almost, and not too tedious.
I question how much having, because I mean, when you use a saw in construction, obviously you're doing something that requires a hammer and a saw, which is 2 invent slots. So I don't really know how saving 1 invent slot is going to help, because you're not going to be able to make anything more. It's not like it allows you to build an extra table or anything. So
honestly,
that's fine.
I think it's more along the sides of the wieldable fishing rods. So it doesn't actually do anything. It's just kind of like
consistency.
It's more just
So I'm fine with all of these rewards. I think the Hesidious house looks really cool. I agree with you in terms of skilling outfits. The only people that this really benefits are those that are going for like 200 million skills. Otherwise, they're like not worth getting.
That's a very big minority. So I mean,
if you're willing to do 200 mil construction, firstly, you have a much bigger bank than I do, and secondly, like, go for it. If the boost helps, then fair enough.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Anything else that you want to talk about Mahogany Homes with, or should we move on?
No, it's all about content, mate. We move.
Yeah. Happy with that. Okay, so the next piece we're going to be looking at is the fishing skill boss, Temporos. You know what? I'm just gonna throw this one over to you, Grant. What was your initial impression of this?
Why?
Okay.
Have you seen how it looks?
Well, it's work in progress. People seem to like
rubbish.
overlook that. I don't know what you're expecting from a fishing skill boss.
I don't know, like Poseidon or something. I don't know.
I mean, that would be cool, but I'd rather have that as like a boss rather than like a fishing skill
my genuine
boss.
Thoughts on it. I actually like parts of it. I'm just not the biggest fan of it being on par with barb fishing.
Okay, well, we'll come to XP rates shortly. Dane, initial impressions? What do you think?
I think if we're going to compare it to something like Winter Todd, for example, I think we should have another skilling boss in the game, because I think that was a big success. Whether or not that was a big success because everyone hates doing fire making, is probably more true. But I think overall, the idea of having a boss that most of the players that play the game will be able to do, I'm all for again. So
I think it's very worth noting that this content is aimed at mid-level players, right? So you have a minimum of 35 fishing required. I'll go into some of the mechanics in a sec. So you need at least 35 fishing to start killing the boss, and at level 70 the XP rate caps out, so you won't get scaled XP past level 70. So at 35 you're expected to get 30k experience an hour, which is less than what you can get by fishing by power fishing trout and salmon, from what I can remember. And at 70, like Grant said, you get 60k an hour, which is about on par with AFKing barb fishing. So what do we think about the rates? Do you think that they're in line with what you should expect from that sort of content? It is a skilling boss. It does require a lot more effort than barb fishing if you're AFK barb fishing.
Like right, sorry mate, appreciate that. I was watching the OSRS podcast earlier. They were talking about how like in Winter Todd, when it came out, it was, you know, intended to be this kind of other thing that you can do, and then it quickly became the only way that we train fire making. And that's true, like everyone gets that in fire making in Winter Todd. And I think with this, having money, because you can make money from it, right? You get the damp pages, which sound ridiculous. It's a fucking wet page, but anyway. I don't know, I just think it's going to quickly become, obviously, unless you're an efficient player, you know, like me, like you're going to 3-tick, but like that's just not something... yeah, mate, weirdly enough. Weird.
Never mentioned that one before.
But yeah.
By the way, I've got an Infernal Cape, guys. I don't know if you know that.
When?
Dane will eventually have something to flex. He doesn't right now, but...
I just think it will quickly become the thing you do. And I'm a bit like, that's...
I really think it depends on... Okay, well, let's go through the mechanics first before we start talking some more about this. So, my understanding is that the boss has 2 resources. It's got its health, and it has something called energy. Players lower the energy by fishing fish that are called harpoon fish, and then firing them in a cannon at the boss. So that's how you drain its like energy bar, which I'm guessing is sort of similar to like a shield sort of mechanic. So when the boss's energy is drained, you get to fish a type of fish called spirit fish, and when you remove enough of those spirit fish from the area, then you beat the boss. So I'm guessing the spirit fish is what the equivalent of the boss's health would be. Sort of like when you burn a log at Winter Todd, then it's like health goes down. In terms of attacks, the boss has 3 attacks. It can fire a giant wave, which removes all fish from your invent. It can disable one of the cannons that you fire your harpoon fish out of. And it also has the ability to make a lightning storm and set the ground on fire, which will do damage. So in terms of mechanics, I think that it is quite varied, considering it is, like I said, a medium tier boss. It's nice to see that there are actually mechanics that you have to think about, because it obviously trains people for later on in the game where they have to, you know, if they want to pursue PvM, they have to actually understand how certain mechanics work. So I do like that.
How did you learn how to do the Inferno? Yes, when I started off, fishing boss,
4,000 hours of the fishing boss. But yeah, I don't think they're that punishing. Like,
no.
When I read the tidal wave thing, my brain went to QBD from RS3, where you fire like or I guess
the firewall.
Galvec in old school, where they nicked that mechanic.
Literally
the firewall.
Does do it, yeah.
So like that's what I was thinking, and that was always a mechanic that was like you were terrified of that when you were like learning. But obviously this is not doing any damage, just removing your fish, which I guess kind of sucks. But at least it teaches you in a way that isn't too punishing. I don't know. I quite like the idea of it. I think that if you're going to go through the skilling boss route, I mean, obviously we have Volcano as well, which is something that a lot of people forget about. We have the 2 ends of the spectrum. We have something like Winter Todd, which is just so much XP. And then we have a skilling boss in the form of Volcano, which is cash, yeah. So I can see both types of skilling boss working. I really wish they would come up with a new name other than skilling boss, though, because I don't know, they don't really seem like bosses.
Look, I will sit and I will talk shit about
word
it.
for it, I must admit.
Yeah, it's not a boss. I will sit and I will talk shit about it. There is things I do like, though. I think the outfit's cool. I love the outfit.
Okay, well, let's talk about some of the rewards then. So, similarly to the Mahogany Homes, you have salvage crates, which give you raw fish sort of equal to your level. Like I said, I'm not sure. They haven't released numbers about like, how many fish you get, or if it's like a point system or whatever. So, that's all the information we've got. We have some spirit bait, which gives you a chance to fish an extra fish, if I'm not mistaken. You don't get the bonus XP for it, but you will get the second fish. So sort of similar to the... What's the essence called?
Blessing.
No, the... Daryl?
Yeah.
The essence in Darkmire.
Yeah.
So works in a similar way to that. Then we have the fish barrel, which allows you to store 28 fish, very similar to the plank sack. The tackle box, which is basically a toolbox for your fishing equipment. obviously kind of targeted at ultimates there, I think. You can't use your items from the box. You have to withdraw everything, so you can't save an invent slot by doing that. Obviously, we have the new set of Angler as well, which looks pretty cool. It's just a cosmetic thing, I think, this one. It does give the same bonuses.
You
as
hand
Angler.
in your Angler, and then it changes it for points, and I think it looks great, actually. I think it looks really cool.
It does look really cool.
The one thing I'm happy about is, sorry to interrupt,
Yeah,
the
no
one thing I
worries.
do like about this entire thing is it is in Alcarid.
Yeah,
The dock
we didn't
is
mention
in-
that. Yeah.
which I like that. I think we've not had anything now apart from the sand casino.
And
So,
it
yeah, I
kind
think
of
it's
shows
cool.
that they are trying to focus on the new player experience a bit as well, right? Because it's in a low level
FTP
area. Obviously, the content is locked for members, but it does sort of give new players that. Because I know
The
when I
dock will
was,
be there.
What actually play.
yeah, exactly. I remember when you guys first started off. Did you see the right click pickpocket and you tried to pickpocket a man,
Yeah,
and then it
of
would come
course,
up
yeah,
saying
and it
like
doesn't
that's a
work
members
and-
feature.
Yeah.
So I like having stuff like that in the early game because it's
Well, it makes you want
does
to pay for it.
encourage
It's a business, right? So I think it's cool.
and I think that's the better way of doing it rather than unlocking certain boosts, or because like a lot of MMOs, they'll offer you boosts and stuff to like X levels.
Buffs and
And like I can't be asked for that. I'd rather them see the content and want to engage with that content. So I think that's pretty cool.
The kind of more we talk about it, the more I like it. But at the same time,
Well, I'll
it's
bring
not
things back
necessarily
to
the content,
the
right? It's not
rewards.
necessarily the idea of it or the rewards. It's the fact that once we kind of do this, we're setting ourselves down a road where, like, well, fishing has one, or well, mining
See,
has
this is
one. And,
this is the
and
topic
so,
we're
you
going
know,
to come to later. So
Yeah.
we'll put a pin in that. Let's talk
Okay,
about
sure.
the rewards for a sec. The final reward that I haven't mentioned so far is the Tome of Water. And like you mentioned earlier,
like it.
Grant, there are the
It sounds
damp pages that comes
ridiculous.
with that.
The fact that you've just got these sloppy wet bit,
Well, I mean,
wet
so
bit
do
of paper
burnt
and,
pages, to be fair.
yeah, but they're burnt and they're charred, and it makes sense. Well, I just have this wet, sloppy bit in the book,
Well,
you know.
Have you seen? I mean, the icon for burnt page is just a black
Yeah.
page. You can't read anything. It's just shit. So the
they have
tome
power.
the Tome of Water. Let me just bring up the blog so I don't misquote this because I think it's actually it has some numbers attached to it.
I thought it was identical to the Tome of Fire, right?
So I believe it is. I don't have the Tome of Fire in front of me, so I'll just go off of this. So if you have a page in the book, you get unlimited water runes, so that's the same as Tome of Fire for fire runes. And this is where it gets interesting. The standard spellbook binding and curse effects are increased by various percentages. So curse is increased by 50%, and that does go all the way up to like vulnerability. So vulnerability goes from a 10% defense reduction to a 15% defense reduction. The binding spells are increased by 30%. So, for example, the 10-second route from snare becomes 13 seconds. And you also have spell accuracy for all water spells, all curses, and all binding spells increased by 10%. So, what do we think about the applications for the Tome of Water? As for the actual effects, I don't really see it changing too much. Of anything.
PvP.
Yeah,
I feel like a lot of the time recently in sort of, you know, ancient spellbooks, especially with Heist Barrage, is going to be the main way we you freeze and stuff. So I think it'll kind of maybe it'll urge players to maybe use the regular spellbook more, especially with the Nightmare staffs currently in game as well.
I know that a DPS is like so important when you do PvP, so I wonder how many people are going to value the increased binding times over something like the damage increase that you get from a Tome of Fire and using the fire spells. So that'd be interesting to see. I'm sure that, you know, people will use it. I'm not sure how long it will last for.
I think that'll just depend on the price though as well. Like if it's relatively cheap, then
I think it will be
probably
cheaper.
worth it. Yeah.
I think it would definitely be cheaper than, because I think you can buy a Tome. I've had one in my bank for ages. You can buy it for about $1 million.
Yeah. I mean,
so I
there
think
are
it's
there
all
are
more-
very niche applications for Tome of Fire and high-end PVM. So obviously the Ice Demon
Chambers is
Chambers
ice, yeah.
comes to mind.
No, I like it, man. I think it's cool. Add
Dane-
it, sure.
Oh, sorry, Grant. Go on.
No, that's it. Just stat it. Oh, yeah, I
Just
think it's a
cool.
good idea.
So in RS3, there are a lot of bosses that require you to use vulnerability and things like that. That's not the case in old school. Do you think that this sort of update where there is gear that increases the effect of curse spells and things like that, do you think that's a good thing in terms of diversity for old school PVM? Like have to have someone that is like a debilitator sort of thing, like one person in your raid team that always brings vulnerability runes, or
I don't think it's a bad thing, whether or not, because once you start to go down that road, then it means that all the bosses can be abused quite easy.
yeah.
I think it's quite hard to then attempt to balance it out. I think overall, it just means that any new boss or any new raid, etc., that comes out,
There's more scope to make it harder.
Yeah,
but obviously
there's more scope to it, which is what you want, really. So
if you do that, then it makes everything that's come before easier, right? I mean, there are. Our friend Jay sent me a clip the other day of someone getting a 0-second Bandos kill with a new amulet that just came out.
Yeah, I remember seeing it as well. It's insane.
And I can understand. So that the amulet, for those that don't know, you can store a special attack into the amulet. So people store their Dragon Claws special attack, and then they will just buffer an ability, and then when Bando spawns, they spec it with the claws, and then use the ability, and you just one-shot it. You can literally kill it in one tick. Obviously, we don't want something as like
that's quite an extreme example. Considering that boss is 15 years old.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. Like we want to make sure that we preserve the identity of this game. Like God Wars Dungeon is such a huge part of old school.
Especially when you consider that you can still get 2 of the best in slot armors from that place. So that needs to be taken into account.
So I think it would be cool if, you know, the idea of like vulnerability and stuff like that, if that could be used. I would prefer it if they maybe didn't focus on the defense reduction, but more the damage reduction ones. So maybe like Curse or what's the other one? I'm drawing a blank.
I can't remember.
The one with the big eye.
Yes.
What is that called? Whatever.
I don't know.
So there's another spell on the standard spellbook which reduces, I think, attack. So I think that would be like a more interesting route to go down rather than
Soul Split.
Soul Split. But yeah. So overall thoughts on the fishing boss? What do we think?
Go on, Grant. I'll let you go first.
I'll go on then. That's pretty much.
You're okay with it?
I just think it's not the content. I just think it's the kind of way we're going with it, not the actual content. The content I think is actually quite cool. It's just more. We will speak about it on our podcast, but it's the kind of idea of fishing has one, so why can't rune crafting and why can't and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Dane,
but, I mean, sure.
As long as they protect the game, like so how Grant is saying, but in terms of like, well, just because they still has one, it means that runecrafting must have one. Obviously, people are going to want that because runecrafting is a pretty bad skill. As long as they protect the game in that sense, as in it still maintains its originality, that things are hard. I think it's not going to completely change the game. So why not have it in? At the end of the day, it gives a lot more content to the mid to low tier of people, which is really what you want. Because you want more, fresher players to be getting involved in that tier of the game to then work themselves up and get higher, which is what you want. So
yeah,
I agree with you guys. I think it is a slippery slope that we need to keep an eye on. But I think that there is a lot of good that can come from mid-level content that is based on this sort of thing. Because obviously, if we keep best in slot, high-end PVM to late game, then there is scope to have like mid-game content for bossing that you can learn how to boss, and then maybe carry some of those skills on. I did just look it up. Curse was the spell I was thinking about, but there was also Weaken and Confuse. So those were the other two that lower attack and strength.
Today we have fishing boss, tomorrow EOC. I'm just saying, man.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed though.
The dream.
We can only hope. Right, okay, so that's the blogs covered for this week. So now we're going to move on to the main topic that I've picked. And fitting with our theme that we've gone for so far, we're going to be talking about skilling.
I'm good at that. Hi. Hello.
So I've written down a question here that I want you guys to think about while we discuss some of these other topics. And it's, is it right that there are no skills that haven't had their meta training methods affected due to new content rather than maintaining their old identities? So I just want you to bear that question in mind while we have a look at some of the skills. And I've written down every efficient way of training a skill. And by efficient, I don't mean EHP. I mean, what is the average player going to do to train that skill? Yeah. Right?
Okay.
So I know that lava runecrafting is better XP per hour than Zaya runecrafting, but I would wager that 90% of players will train runecrafting through Zaya.
Yeah.
So I've written down a bunch of these. I've gone through every skill. So I'm just going to go through these now, and I'll let you guys sort of take it in, and then we can just discuss it after. Okay. So from top to bottom, so attack, we have Nightmare Zone. Strength and defense, we also have Nightmare Zone, obviously. Darrocking in Nightmare Zone.
Yeah.
Ranging, we have Chin Chompers at Maniacal Monkeys, found in Monkey Madness 2. Prayer, we've got the Chaos Altar in the Wilderness, as well as the Arceus Spellbook. Magic, we have Barraging at Maniacal Monkeys. Runecrafting, again, I just mentioned Zaya runecrafting. Construction, for most players, won't be mahogany tables.
Dungeon doors,
I've put that down. So dungeon doors or mythic cape racks. Constitution is obviously a 0 time skill that you'll train with all your combats.
What?
Sorry, hit points. Sorry.
Oh,
sorry.
that's shocking. Yeah, man.
Oh no, my oh god, I have to retire now. An early resignation for me. I hereby resign as host of NPC. Okay, agility, we have obviously the Hallowed Sepulchre as well as rooftop agility.
Yeah.
Herblore, obviously the way that you train Herblore is the same, but the different pots that have come out. So we have super combat pots, stamina pots, and anti-venoms. Thieving, blackjacking, Knights of Ardi, and pyramid plunder. Crafting is battle staves and dragonhide. Fletching, obviously darts. Slayer is a rather unique skill, so we'll come back to that in a little bit. For Hunter, we've got birdhouses, herbivore, and black chins. Mining, we've got Motherlode Mine, Volcanic Mine, 3-tick granite. Smithing is blast furnace. Fishing is obviously the new fishing. No, is barbarian fishing. For cooking, we've got wine and 1-tick rambwans. Obviously, not everyone's going to do that, but it is an option for those that want to get it quickly. Fire making, we have Wintertodt, woodcutting, redwoods, and finally farming is tree runs. So I've written down all of these different methods. There are 5 skills that I've counted which remain completely unchanged from back in the day, and those would be farming, cooking, fishing, fletching, and crafting. There are 3 minor changes, those being thieving with the introduction of achievement diaries. Obviously the Knights of Ardi has become a much more accepted way of training. Mage and range, the method has always been the same, chinning and barraging, but obviously the Maniacal Monkeys give you a new location to do that. Yeah. You make money from doing it now. You don't lose money, so it does change that. And there have been 2 what I've described as meta shifts. So smithing, back in the day, you used to make adamant plates or superheat. You would never really use blast furnace, although the blast furnace was in the game. It's just not something that people realized how good it was. And it's the same sort of story for where is it?
Construction?
Construction. So obviously there are multiple ways of training it, but yeah. So I've just going off of your off the top of your head, hearing that list, hearing the amount of changes, and going back to my original question, do you think that that's a problem? What are your initial thoughts? We'll go Grant first, seeing as you are the maxed one. You've obviously done more skilling than the both of us, so do you think that it is an issue that...
Well, that essentially we're just kind of changing the way we train things.
Yeah. There's nothing... Well, there are 5 skills from what I've counted, and obviously there are ways that you can train all of these skills that are sort of in alignment with the way that it used to be done, but it's just not recommended.
Well, that's kind of what I was going to say, in the fact that I don't mind when new things come out, as long as it kind of goes in line with the older methods. I know that sounds kind of like, what's the point in bringing in new stuff? But like, if tomorrow we kind of come to the conclusion that the best way to train attack is to like, I don't know, I can't think of an example, but do something that's completely not combat, you know, like, you know.
So like the like those 10 HP accounts do.
Yeah. Like that's no meta for attack training or something, right? That's just not okay. Yeah. So, like for example, Winter Todd is. I use that one because that is probably the biggest meta shift, like in the game. Probably, you went from burning logs, and now we have this shiny piece of content, and everyone does it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing as long as said content is in line with the older methods. I know that's kind of a bit stupid, but
what do you reckon, Dane?
Yeah.
I think it's a tough one because if you think back to, so for example, fletching, like I remember when I first started doing fletching, you had to literally use every unstrung bow on every bowstring 14 times to do an invent. So, you know, when you think back to that, people just wouldn't do that in this day and age. They just get like a bot to do it, which is not right. But that's because, as we said in the previous episode, like society it's not the same as it was.
Yeah.
And people just aren't noobs anymore. So
I think the introduction of something like a max cape really pushes an agenda for everything to be quicker.
It means that the game has to change, and it has to change because if it doesn't, it's just going to be full of bots and people that just won't play the game for how it should be played. So, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing because I feel like the changes that they've brought into the skills that you've mentioned have actually been very good for the game itself anyway. If you look at like Zia rune crafting, I personally think that's quite good. Like it's not absolutely overkill, but it's good enough for a skill that was quite bad. Let's face it.
And you are someone that you very much enjoy abyss rune crafting, don't you?
I think enjoy's a bit strong, but
well, I mean, like you back in the day, you had
I could deal with it, yeah.
You had like 90 rune crafting when that's how you trained rune crafting.
Yeah.
Like before RuneSpan came out, I remember when RuneSpan came out, and you were a bit salty because you had like done it the hard way.
You just got to accept it, aren't you? Really? So
yeah.
I think overall, and the skills that you mentioned that haven't had the say fundamental change into how you train them. I feel like that's just because they've just not needed one really. Like farming is it's expensive, which is bad for most players.
Farming boss.
Yeah, well, farming is a farming is an interesting one because obviously it's time restricted. So they have added more farming patches. They've added
giant tangle root. So.
They've added. Well, there's the Hespori. Yeah, that's a farming boss.
Yeah. Okay.
They've added, what else have they added? Well, they've obviously got the farming guilds, so you've got farming contracts. You have the tithe farm now, which is actually a legitimate way to train the skill rather than like waiting for a timer. Like you can sit there and grind out my own farming at tithe farm if you want. I don't know why you would do that. That would be insane. But if you are so inclined, you can. So farming is a very unique one, but I feel like stuff like crafting, I feel like there is scope for more there.
You would think a skill like crafting would be the one they focused on, right? Instead of making, okay, let's make winter tods. This, we burn log. Yeah, you would think back then they would go, okay, let's pick a skill. Okay, let's pick crafting because there is, crafting is such a generic term. You can do anything.
Yeah, I mean, people were saying, why are you bothering with warding? Just put warding into crafting.
Yeah,
which would obviously change the way that you train crafting completely. Yeah, I'm not sure. So. Just after we've gone through that, I want to ask you guys one question, and that is, what is your favorite skill to train? And I want to know why.
Do we count Slayer?
I'm gonna say no because I think that's like an obvious answer. Yeah, everybody loves Slayer.
I still have an answer, then that's fine.
But I mean, like the idea. So we can touch on that for a sec. So the why. Why is it that you enjoy Slayer?
I like the It makes you feel efficient. That sounds really weird, right? Because you're training Slayer, you train in your combat, which is that's huge for any account. And I don't know, it's just people argue the variety thing. It's not a variety thing. You do the same 10 tasks. It's like, no, it's not variety. But it's I don't know. I just think
I think
with Slayer, especially in current times with the bosses and stuff, there's just so much
it doesn't
to
feel
do
like a
when just
grind.
training combat. No, not at all, ever really.
Like by the time you're sick of the task that you're done, you've pretty much finished that task, and you can
Yeah,
go
we
get another
move on.
task, and you go to a different area. Like you can't do that with something like woodcutting. Like you are sat at the redwoods until you get 99,
Yeah.
or whatever tree you want to cut. sorry, Mr. U Logs. You are a very interesting case when it comes to skilling, Dane. You have your own.
You're a hustler.
That was almost very condescending and not at the same time.
No, I didn't mean that as like an insult, but so for the people listening, what was your thought process going into 99 woodcutting?
Well, my thought process is the same with any skill. If I can AFK it, I will, even if it's, say, 30% slower, I will 100% do that all the time, because you're not getting as much XP as you can in that set amount of time, but you can do other things at the same time, and it also means that I can most of the time just sit back and either watch Netflix or watch YouTube.
You didn't switch to redwoods at 90 though, did you?
No, but that's because then.
Why did you decide to cut use until 99?
Because also, if I can make a bit of money while also doing that, then it means that skills that do cost me money, it's not really going to cost me anything because I've made money from doing a skill.
I love that mindset. Like,
it's I know it sounds like Iron Man, but it isn't, because how people spend like a week attempting to get an item for one quest just blows my mind. I just think, what's the point?
we mock you for your skilling methods, but like it's a smart way of doing it, right? Like, so to most people, the efficient path, and this goes back to what you were saying about how everyone wants to be so efficient and society and yada yada. The efficient path would be spend the money and then sit at somewhere like Zulrah to make your money back.
That's where I would agree with.
Yeah,
But
that's
again,
what I
that
did.
isn't necessarily true, because when you say efficiency, that is still relative to who you are as a person. So if I want to spend some of my time, say, watching a YouTube video, it's efficient for me to do a skill that takes a bit longer, that I can AFK 100% of the time, and then use the money that I've made from that skill to do another skill and so it ends up cheaper anyway. So I spend a little bit more time, but I'm saving money. So that means that the time I would have to spend making that money to do the next skill, I don't have to do, because I've already made the money from doing the skill in the first place. So
and you did 99 woodcutting by cutting yew logs. You then fletched all of those logs into longbows to get 99 fletching, and then you alked all of those bows to get like 96 mage or whatever it was.
I was just short of 94 because I didn't get ice barrage from it. But that was from like a level like 70ish. I don't even know, to be honest. But
so you've basically ticked 3 skills off there without spending money, and you made loads of money doing it.
I did some of the rooftop agility. So again, that's like almost 4 skills being ticked off at the same time.
It's like a tramp efficiency. Like if you want to like save all the money and be efficient at the same, you should write like a maxing guide from your perspective.
ebook.
I think it would be really interesting.
I feel like it's different because as you know as well, my RS3 account has quite a lot of XP on it.
Yeah.
And that's because, like you're saying with like certain skills like construction, it is sometimes better to just throw 500 mil at it and then just make it back slowly, because then the skill is finished, it's completed, it's out of the way. And I have done that as well. It's just where you are at the time and what you want to do with that time.
It depends how much you enjoy that skill as well. Like if you enjoy, I mean, people think that I am insane for liking thieving as a skill. Like thieving is my favorite skill in the game. And my favorite thing.
Back to your original question.
My favorite thing to do, training thieving wise, is blackjacking. And people think like
that's crazy.
No,
yeah, exactly.
That's mental.
But there is something that I find so enjoying. There's something I enjoy so much about the rhythm that I get into, and I'm sure that there are people, maybe not, maybe I am crazy, but there might be people out there that relate to me in terms of getting that rhythm down, and you sort of get into sort of like a a trance or emotion. And I know that what's his name, Autumn Elegy, said the same thing when he was doing 200 mil mining. It's less about like mining or whatever, but it's more about the relaxing repetitiveness of like clicking in certain places. So I get that there are methods of training skills that people wouldn't necessarily jump on because they don't enjoy that method, but to other people it makes like perfect sense. Like I would never do pyramid plunder because I don't enjoy the content.
I get what you're saying in terms of like enjoying being in a like a rhythm almost. I get that because I get that a lot with like Zulrah. If I'm just sat at Zulrah for an hour, I quite enjoy just the having to switch between like 8 different, you know, so like the major range. People think, if I actually think about it before I go, I think I don't really want to do that. I can't be asked.
Yeah.
But when I'm actually doing it, I almost get into the rhythm of it and I just enjoy it. So I can understand where you're coming from with that. But going back to your original question again, I think if no one knows, my favourite skill is obviously woodcutting. That probably stems from the fact that it was my first ever 99.
Yeah, that's how we met.
Ago. Yeah, that's how we met. So I know quite a lot of friends on RS. You know, it's how I made it's how I was able to buy my first whip. Christ, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, we have far too many memories about woodcutting to fit into an hour-long podcast.
and it's the best cape. So
yeah, there is that. Yeah. So I have a couple of other questions that I've got written down.
My favorite skill is Herblore. Thank you.
Oh wait, yeah, we didn't come back to you. So you said Slayer though, so I was sort of thrown off.
No.
So okay, outside of Slayer,
any 14/14 skill.
Why is that?
It's the same reason I suppose you like Blackjack. I find it kind of therapeutic in a weird way. I don't know, fletching, Herblore. I like doing wines. What else is there?
So it's more that you enjoy the. So it's not necessarily for like the bank standing element, but more the.
No, I don't know. I like
itself.
Herblore a lot because it was expensive as well.
You liked it because it was expensive.
Yeah, because it was like, okay, I'm doing this expensive skill that not a lot of people have, and I really enjoyed the kind of. I don't know, it's weird. All right, moving on.
I got 99 Herblore last week, and I did not like throwing money at it.
I don't know, I do. It's weird.
Does it feel like you're actually making progress in a skill then when you see your cash stack going down?
I sat with you when you did, were you fletching or something? I just did Herblore with you. I was already max at this point. I had like 16 mil Herblore just from doing it. I don't know why. It's weird. One of those things, I guess.
I can't remember why. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's very interesting. And the reason that I asked why is because, I mean, in this call alone, we've had 3 different answers and we've had 3 different perspectives as to why you enjoy that skill, because it's not a universal thing, right?
Yeah.
So when I look at this list that I've written out and I see all of these new things, I don't think, wow, the integrity of this game has like gone to shit because all of the ways that you used to train in old school. And I know that people get very hung up on the idea that this is old school. It's not 2007 Scape.
It's not,
which I agree with. It's in the style of that game, but it's not that game at all. Thank God, because that game was like riddled with issues. And I'm allowed to say that because I played in 2007. I feel like a lot of people say that they've played in 2007, but they really didn't. Because
they started like 2011 or something.
Yeah, like the amount of people that. Anyway. So yeah, I don't see like a huge list of problems, but what I do see is that there is an option for every type of player, which I think is good. So it was mentioned about rune crafting earlier, about how there is the option to do lava rune crafting, but most players will pick Zaya rune crafting because it's AFK, it makes you lots of money, blah blah blah. But there will be people out there that think that lava rune crafting is the best training method out of any skill ever, which I can understand. Because I'm someone that, like, my favorite training method is blackjacking, and people think I'm insane for that. So I do like that there is a variety of skilling methods.
Yeah.
I do want to circle back to the point that we mentioned earlier about skilling bosses, and about the idea of like slipping one into every skill. How concerned are you guys with the direction of skilling bosses, if you are at all? Do you think that they should be XP focused? Do you think that they should be reward focused? Do you think that there should be somewhere in the middle? Or what sort of model would you guys like to see based on what we've got in game at the moment and what there is planned?
I think it depends what skill it is, to be quite honest with you, in my opinion. So, but as long as they don't reward more XP than doing the best method in game, I think you're normally on a pretty good road there, if that makes sense. And then as long as like the rewards is in like either whether it be like like fishing, like the fishing boss for example, as long as they're not just absolutely ridiculous, I think it's just more content for more people to do that's not going to break the game. So why would you not have it in there?
Okay, carry on, Grant.
I was just gonna say I kind of like consistency. I don't know. I feel like Dane's right. It does depend on the skill. But like for me personally, like I just like say we're in 2030 and every skill has a skilling boss. Are we even skilling anymore?
Yeah,
like,
I see what you mean.
So like I just feel like I like Zalcano as an example because I think it is a skilling boss. Used as a rune crafting and smithing and mining, right? I think that's the three.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't really give a whole lot of XP, but the rewards are good. And I like the idea. We kind of go back to skilling outfits. I like the idea of maybe a skilling boss, if that's what we're going to call them still, because it's just kind of weird. But like, to kind of give things that might benefit you when training the actual skill. So like, for example, the farming outfit from Tithe Farm. I know that's not a skilling boss, but like, it's what I mean. And vice versa. So I don't know. I think it'd be kind of cool in that way. But
I think it's interesting that Dane says that you don't want the method to be the best. I mean, you look at something like fire making, and because like I think that is the obvious example.
I feel like that's a bit different though.
Do you think that's a good thing though?
Yes, because with society as the way it is now and the way that everyone wants to play the game, fire making as a skill was pretty useless anyway. It was virtually broken, let's face it. Having to click 29 times just to do one invent, well even more than that obviously, because you had to click on back on the tinderbox after every log and then go back to the bank and get out another invent. I just feel like that was just it was far too tedious this day and age. So the fact that they brought out it I do agree that maybe Winter Todd was a little bit overpowered and even still is in terms of XP rates, but it's far too late to change it now anyway.
Yeah. I just take so much issue with the word boss.
It's not a boss.
Word for it, but
I agree.
For lack of a better.
Skilling encounter. I don't know.
Yeah, like even that would be fine, because I mean, when I think of a boss, I don't think, oh, I'm gonna go train strength at Bandos. I think I'm gonna go to fight this boss to get his loot because I want to make money. I don't think that a boss should be the best experience that you can get or the meta experience that you can get in a certain skill.
No, but it should also reward you in a way that's going to either make you continue. But so use Bandos as an example, right? It's obviously not a skilling boss, but Bandos drops gear that's going to make you want to go do more combat, right? So why can't a fishing boss, if that's what we're calling it still, drop stuff that's going to help you do more fishing?
Make you want to fish, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think for me, I prefer the Zolcano approach out of everything that we've looked at so far. I think that in terms of what I would categorize as a boss, that is what ticks my boxes.
Well, it's more of a boss, you know what I mean? Like it walks about, it looks kind of scary, while like Winter Todd, it's a hole.
Yeah, exactly. And at least the fishing boss is actually going to be a boss.
It's a physical thing, yeah.
It looks like a blob, but that's fine. But I also do agree that it depends on what the skill is, because I don't think there's any point having like an AFK woodcutting boss that is low experience.
Exactly.
And
I think having a skill of a boss for each skill just for the sake of being consistent is pretty stupid.
Yeah,
I can't see that happening. So
I don't think it would, but I just feel like when they add like the fishing boss. Like I don't think it would be for every skill, but I feel like we're kind of going on this kind of like the slope where it's like, well, here's the rune crafting boss, but it's not as good as Zaya, but it's like pretty much as good and it makes a lot of money. Like it's just they're really good at hiding that under things. They'll kind of go, oh well, it's not as good as this, but it's still really really good. You know what I mean? Like, and it'll also
for
give
me,
yeah.
They just need to come out with a new name for this category of quote unquote bosses, because they aren't bosses in my eyes. Like the Winter Todd isn't a boss. It is lighting a fucking brazier for 50 hours and then you're done. Yeah.
And then
again, slamming your mouse down because you get hit like every tick. So they need to come out with like a, I don't know, like a term for it, whether it is something like a skilling encounter.
What was what was like big chat? That was D&D's, wasn't it? Never mind. Actually.
Yeah, we'll come on to D&D's in a sec. I've got that written down. So we'll just wrap up the skilling bosses chat. So I think in general what we've agreed on then is that they're not necessarily good or bad. They fill a niche for a skill if that niche
is required.
Should be filled. I think it definitely does depend on each individual skill. Like we were saying earlier, I don't think there's any point of having, I don't know, like a
woodcutting boss or something.
A golden tree that you cut and you get money for cut. Like that doesn't really make sense to me. Yeah, like you need to sort of keep it consistent with the skills, which I think they've done a relatively good job of doing so far. I really don't want to see that slip though. That's the concern for me. But yeah, anything else that you guys want to add on the topic of skilling bosses before we move on to D&Ds?
No.
Nope.
Pretty happy.
Let's go straight to D&Ds. That sounds wonderful.
Hello guys, Will here. Sorry for interrupting your podcasting experience. I just wanted to quickly jump in and say that we're going to be ending this episode here. Now, originally we went on for another sort of half an hour talking about the idea of adding a new skill into the game, and after speaking to the lads and doing the editing for that episode, I think we decided that it just makes more sense to have that be an entire topic for an entire episode itself. We did have some really cool ideas that we wanted to talk about, but seeing as it was so late into the evening, we record podcasts on a Thursday evening because it's the only day that all three of us are free, and by this point it had gotten to sort of midnight, so energy levels were a bit low. We just decided that it's probably best to sort of save that discussion for another day, because we didn't want to give you a sort of half-hearted interpretation of what we thought about for that sort of topic. So I'm going to leave it here at the end of the skilling boss discussion that we had. I'm sorry about that. Sorry for the abrupt ending. If you guys did enjoy the episode, if you did, you know what to do. Thank you so much for all of the support on episode 0. That meant a lot to all three of us. We weren't expecting to get so many views. I think it got to sort of 70 odd views in the first sort of 3 or 4 hours, which is, far more than we ever anticipated. So you're all amazing. Thank you for tuning in. If you have any ideas for topics that you want us to talk about in the future, then let me know. I'll be going through all the comments and stuff, and I think that's it from me. All of our socials and stuff are in the description as always, or on the screen in the little boxes, so make sure you go check Grant out. Obviously Dane and I are here, so subscribe if you want to. And at some point soon we'll be bringing out a new skill podcast, where I think the idea is that each of us are going to present a new skill. I know that we have like an interesting mix here, because one of the skills is a brand new skill that I came up with. One of them is a skill that we have seen in the past in RuneScape, and the other one is a skill that has already been polled. So it's going to be interesting to sort of see the differences between all of that. Anyway, that's enough rambling from me. Like I said, hopefully you guys enjoyed, and we will catch you in episode 2, where Grant is going to be hosting, because I was working. I didn't have time to come up with a topic, so Grant took over for me. So thank you very much, Grant. Anyway, much love, guys. I will catch you next time.